previous lecture, we talked about semantics. We defined what semantics is, and then we talked about the meaning. We also distinguished between sense and reference. We also talked about the meaning of meaning. We touched upon 7 types of meaning by Geoffrey Leach, in his famous book Semantics in 1974. We talked about conceptual meaning, and within conceptual meaning we define what's denotative or conceptual meaning. We said that conceptual meaning is denotative and it relates to concept. We also talked about the conceptual meaning having a central meaning, sometimes called dictionary meaning. We also talked about the idea of reference in syntax, reference in semantics, reference in discourse analysis, and reference in pragmatics. We distinguished between sense and reference, and we also distinguished between connotation and denotation. We said that connotation is the abstract properties of meaning, while denotation is the concrete meaning. We distinguished between sense and reference in detail. We were talking about sense and reference, in which we said that reference refers to a linguistic form to the real physical world object. So the relationship between linguistic meaning and non-linguistic meaning of experience. Okay, we also talked about Ogden and Rach's triangle. We touched upon this triangle. We said that whenever we talk about a word, this word refers to a sense, or it has a meaning of it. So this meaning refers to an object or a referent in the outside world. The relationship between the word and the referent or the object is purely arbitrary, because there is no relation between the word and its meaning whatsoever. Why? Well, there's no relation between the word and the object. Why? Because the relationship between them is arbitrary, as we mentioned last year and as we mentioned in the previous lectures, touching upon Dussau's arbitrary relation between word and the object. Today we are talking about having a reference and a sense. A word having a reference must have a sense. What do you mean by this? If we explain the difference between sense and reference from the following 4 perspectives, we have to touch upon these differences or these points between sense and reference. To some extent, every word has a sense. That is to say, some conceptual content. Otherwise, it cannot be used or understood. So we said that every word must have a sense, but not necessarily every word has a reference. But not every word has a reference, as we said. There are linguistic expressions which can never be used to refer. For example, the word so. There is nothing indicate so. There is nothing indicate very. There is nothing indicate maybe. There is nothing indicate if, not, and all. So there is no reference for these words. These words do of course contribute to meaning to the sentence they occur in, and thus help the sentence denote, but they do not have any reference, because they do not themselves identify entities in the real world. So they are intrinsically non-referring items. And the words like ghost, dragon refer to an imaginary thing which do not exist in reality. Certain reference can be expressed by more than one sense. There are some cases when a reference can be expressed by more than one sense. For example, evening star may be a planet, usually Venus, seen at sunset in the western sky, while a morning star, a planet, usually Venus, seen just before sunrise in the eastern sky, nearly always refer to Venus. So these two concepts refer to Venus, but each of them presents a particular emotional temperament and a particular sense of values. So meaning, ideals, and appreciations. So that's why these two these two words refer to the same reference, which is Venus, but of course they portray or they evoke a different kind of emotional meaning or emotional temperament. So, conceptualist mentalist view about meaning. Let's explore the conceptualist or mentalism view of meaning. So, conceptualist view holds that there is no direct link between a linguistic form and what it refers to. We said it, there is an arbitrary relation between the word and the object or the referent. That's to say, between the language of the real world. Rather, in the interpretation of meaning, they are linked through the mediation of concept or mind. So that's why this is the conceptualist or the mentalist view of meaning, in which there is no direct link between the linguistic form and what it refers to. So mentalism or conceptualism follows Dussel sign theory and considers the linguistic sign to consist of a signifier and signified. That's to say, a sound image and a concept linked by a psychological or associative bond. So, which means, so mentalism or conceptualism views sign as an arbitrary concept or entity. Why? Because there is no reference, there is no relation, there is no direct link between the sign and the referent. So if we talk about the word, that's the signifier, applying the Ogden and Richards triangle. The word, that's signifier. This word refers to a concept in mind, which has sense. So this concept referred to an object in the outside world. This is the object in the outside world. This is called referent. It is in Dussel terminology signified. But there is no relation, or there is an indirect relation between signifier and signified. Why? Because when we say good in English, which means good, or when we say computer, there is no relation between the word computer and the actual computer. Or in Kurdish, if we say mobile, هیچ پەیوەندیەکی ڕاستەوخۆ نیە لە نێوان مۆبایل و وشەی مۆبایل کە دەڵێن مۆبایل لەگەڵ ئەم ئامێرەی کە بۆی دەگەڕێتەوە. So this is the relation between signifier and signified. So we talked about it as two sides of the same coin, but the problem is that the relationship between them is arbitrary in Dussel terminology. So this is best illustrated by the classic semantic triangle or triangle of significance. A theory which explicitly employs the notion concept is the semantic triangle proposed by Ogden and Richards, in which, in the meaning of meaning, according to the semantic triangle theory, the relation between a word and its thing or a thing it refers to is not direct. It's mediated by a concept. Thank you so much for today's lecture. So I hope you are fine and I hope you enjoy today's lecture. Thank you.